It's a request from the Lehigh Acres Spring Festival Committee to waive all fees associated with the 2016 Lehigh Acres Spring Festival.
Second.
Somebody's going to make that
Oh.
motion.
I thought you made the motion.
No, I just wanted to know.
No, he wanted to know what it
Oh.
was going to be.
Okay, then I'll make the
Unless
motion.
you want to share something else.
Yeah, motion.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
on the
Commissioners.
Spring Festival. All right, we're moving on to user fees. Chief Bennett.
At the last board meeting, we were going to present a fee resolution to the board for consideration to change or modify our existing user fees. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend on time, and I apologize for my tardiness again this evening. But that item was tabled to this evening. At the conclusion of last meeting, I had an opportunity to speak to Attorney Pringle, and we're discussing the options of using a lien process to collect some of our fees, mostly where we do our annual inspections and we provide a fee invoice to those folks, and the majority of the folks pay, but some don't. A lien provides an opportunity to the district to place that onto the property. We can collect it eventually, whereas if we have to send them into collections, we're only getting 30 to 50 cents on the dollar, Janice? Somewhere around there?
Correct.
So a lien provides a better option to the district, and in some cases we don't collect the lien when we go to collections. Attorney Pringle had indicated that the ordinance is most likely the preferred route to go if we're ever at a point where we intend to foreclose on a lien. So based upon our conversation at the conclusion of the last meeting, I'm asking the board to consider the options, and Attorney Pringle can explain further of utilizing the fee resolution, which we have been using from 2007 forward when I introduced the fee resolutions that I've presented to the board, and perhaps go to a ordinance system in adopting the fees. The ordinance is going to require 2 public hearings. We'll have to advertise for that, and 2 board meetings. So, Mr. Pringle, I'll turn the floor over to you.
I do not recall. Just practice.
Ordinances require 2 meetings.
The law relating to fees, user charges, is actually what it's called in the statute. It is referred to in 2 places in Chapter 191 of the Florida statutes, which governs independent special fire control districts. The specific reference to user charges is found in Section 191.009, subsection 3, and it says the board may provide a reasonable schedule of charges for special emergency services, including firefighting, inside or outside the district, or for motor vehicles or marine vessels or aircraft, or as the result of an operation of a motor vehicle or vessel within the boundaries of the district. And then it goes on to list some other fees that the district can establish through approval of a reasonable schedule of charges, as the phrase in the statute. As I read the law, there are 2 methods the district can use to adopt a fee schedule. The one that is used primarily by fire districts is a resolution process to adopt a fee schedule, and that is what you have done in the past. And the general idea is that with a resolution process, you can do that essentially at any time. It's a simpler process to adopt a resolution than it is to adopt an ordinance. But there are some distinctions between the force and effect of a resolution and the force and effect of an ordinance, and what you can do under each. And generally speaking, the difference between approving a schedule of fees through a resolution and approving a schedule of fees through an ordinance is that with a resolution, I have not ever tried to enforce through a lien or foreclosure of a lien process a fee that has been in a fee schedule that was adopted by resolution. I will tell you that in my role as county attorney over in Glades County, we adopt quite a few ordinances, and by adopting the ordinances, we give public hearing opportunities. The process you would use to adopt an ordinance, by the way, would be to put a notice in the paper, a special notice in the paper that you're going to hold a public hearing. Chief Bennett has indicated 2 public hearings that you would hold those public hearings. You would notice them in advance. You would give the public an opportunity to speak in those separate public hearings, and then at the end of all of that, you would adopt an ordinance. When an ordinance is adopted, generally the understanding is that you will have authority under an ordinance adoption to lien property. The statute says that you have the ability to lien property. And I've not ever found where a fee schedule adopted by resolution resulted in a lien foreclosure process happening. But there have been times when, through the adoption of an ordinance, a fee schedule through an ordinance process, that a lien foreclosure
Fee
process.
resolution.
User fees.
So in the past, you've always used the resolution process, and we've not ever talked about, because there's not ever been a high dollar amount of fees that were not being paid, and so it is cost prohibitive. It's not worth it to pursue a lien foreclosure action on a fee. So far, Chief Bennett indicated to me recently that some of the fees have not been paid, and the amount of the fees that have not been paid have been increasing. And so he asked me to speak on the difference between a fee schedule being adopted by resolution, where I would be reluctant to advise you to pursue a lien foreclosure action. I mean, if you want to try and make new law, we can. But I would not suggest doing that. If you think you really want to pursue foreclosing a lien, I would first suggest that you think long and hard about it before you incur the additional expense. But then secondly, I would say, if you're going to think about that in the future, my suggestion is the best way to set yourself in the best position possible to be successful would be to adopt an ordinance, use an ordinance process to adopt your fee schedule. There you go.
Just one quick question. If we adopted an ordinance schedule and we change our fees, what would be the process for changing our fees in such a situation?
Normally, the process is to use the same format to change what you have adopted by ordinance. That's the rule of thumb. I have seen situations, although I don't recommend it, but I have seen situations where the initial ordinance said that you could amend the fee schedule or the charges by a resolution process. The idea is that the public hearings and all of the extra effort to inform the public of your intention to adopt an ordinance, and then to allow them to speak in a public hearing for the adoption of the ordinance, occurs up front. When you establish and say, we will lien your property by this ordinance, we have authority to lien your property, and we shall lien your property. That all happens essentially in the first ordinance public hearing adoption process. And then after that, some places do adopt fee schedules through resolutions, but if you've gone that far down the road, and I don't know how often, you don't adopt fee schedule amendments very often.
It's 4 years approximately since the last one.
So if you're going every 4 years, the extra cost to do the ordinance adoption process is not, it's not cost prohibitive, I would think. If you're doing it only once every 4 years or so, it would be okay to do that.
Okay. Commissioners?
What are the other districts in this county do?
Most Well, the ones that I represent and most of the ones I know about use a resolution with the understanding that, and, you're going to use the collection method that Chief Bennett has described, where you turn it over to a collection agency. And essentially, they put forth their efforts, and they take a part of a percentage of whatever dollars they collect through their efforts, and then give you the balance. And then when they are done with their efforts, you're essentially done. You stop. You don't pursue anything after that.
Okay.
And I think that's what usually happens. And would be my suggestion would be the proper way to address those, unless you are starting to get a large dollar amount of fees. If people have reached the place where they essentially are ignoring you and are ignoring the district's fees that you charge, and they're not paying, everybody says, we're not going to pay because they don't have any enforcement authority, that, then you might think of doing something different too.
Is that
Have
the
that
case?
problem?
It's not a really big problem that we have at this point. As far as construction inspections, we don't provide the inspection until the fees are paid. Same thing with the plan review aspect of it. It's the existing businesses. When we go out and do the first inspection, it's free. But if we have to go back for re-inspections, we do charge for that inspection. Some of those folks are reluctant, or their corporate offices may take quite a bit of time to actually process or pay those. Turning them over to collections, we've had some good luck with doing that, but again, we don't recover everything that we've put into that. And then some of these fees are rather small. By the time it gets through with collections, it may not be worth it to the district. My experience working with another organization, when I liened property after I completed work with them, as far as I'm aware, we never foreclosed on a lien. We just let the lien sit there and accrue interest.
And Madam Chair, if I may, that Chief Bennett is making reference to one point that I forgot to mention, and I apologize. If you have effected a lien, created a lien against a piece of real estate, when that piece of real estate is sold, that lien that has been recorded pops up on a title search, and then whoever the seller is all of a sudden realizes, oops, I have to address this, I need to pay it, and or proof why it is not enforceable. If you have adopted your fee schedule through an ordinance process, then most folks who search title look at an ordinance as having the authority to impose a lien on real estate. And so there you would get some benefit of having an ordinance versus a resolution from that standpoint, from the standpoint that most folks recognize an ordinance gives you that authority to lien real estate, where a resolution maybe not so much. So that is a distinction. I apologize for not mentioning that earlier.
Well, it sounds like what we're doing now is cheaper than paying an attorney fee. Well, I'm sorry, Richard.
I do not recall.
Okay.
And the way Richard says and you say it's not a big deal.
Oh, just so the board's aware, there is a recording fee associated with each item when you lien. It's typically around $10 to $12.
Okay.
So if we had to lien something, there is a recording fee that's attached to that.
Okay.
Commissioner Kirk?
Yeah. Thinking about this and going through, as we're starting to go back into rebuilding and more construction is going on, we got new businesses coming in, we got all these people starting to look at Lehigh, and we've got to quit giving away free services. I'm sorry, but the fire department, everybody thinks we're supposed to be able to do the same thing we did in 1950, provide the 1950 services, and as times change, we cannot be giving away free services for things that used to be free back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Even though we need to put the lien, after one or two businesses and they see it, they realize, whoops, we need to do that, because of the fact that without us being there to check their property, without us providing this professional education and the evaluation, it puts their business at risk if they fail, and then puts the public at risk, and then puts our community at risk. And we need to be as much as we can, because every one of these businesses, on everything that we see here, affects each and every one of us, our neighbors, this business next door, no matter who it is. And I really feel we need to go ahead and do the ordinance and start doing for the liens, because the fact that the only thing we're going to be doing is growing. And yes, the liens may be a small amount, but the point is that people realize Lehigh is changing. It's not like what it was 20 and 30 years ago. We have to build, and we had all these new firefighters today. We have all this other, and I'm tired of giving away free services. Pay for growth, pay for the service, and if you don't want to pay for it, hey, put a lien against it, and we'll collect it, when you sell your property. But I really feel that we must go that route, and because we have, how's the false alarms going? Have we had many the same companies anymore, or they got down to that again?
No, they've trimmed back. There's a lot more residences installing alarm systems, and they get their 1 or 2 alarms each year.
Okay.
And that's common.
Right.
The more homes we get here in Lehigh, we're going to get more businesses with alarms. When they go out and sell the system for intrusion alarm or burglar alarm, it's just a small additional cost to add a smoke detector in there, and that's what sends us out there. So, but for the most part, the businesses are not as bad. We do have some issues with some of the schools, but I'm working with the school district, talking to them about that. False alarms, I'm trying to resolve those.
Okay.
Programming issues, but yes, the program appears to be working.
Yeah, so my thought is to go ahead and do it as an ordinance with a area at the bottom of it. On the very last line, fees can be adjusted and capped or whatever, so we don't have to go back in as need be and approve the ordinance every 4 years, and and do the liens is where I would make the motion to do that. The ordinance with liens.
Go ahead. I got something.
My question is, how many dollars did we not collect last year?
I don't have that information
Estimated.
available.
2,000, 3,000?
Do you have anything, Larry?
6,000 probably.
5,000 or 6,000?
Yeah.
So it is quite substantial.
There is a couple businesses that we have that have never paid for inspection fees since I've been here. So those are the type of businesses I would target for liens. Everyone else that we've had success with the collections process, I'd say we continue moving forward with that. But the folks that are not paying, the collections agency, those are the folks that I would try to target for the lien process. So,
Commissioner Evans?
So I guess what I'm trying to figure out here is, would it be financially for the district, trying to figure out where to put it this way, beneficial for the district to go for ordinance or stick with the resolution? When you're looking at the money you're going to collect is attorney fees.
Yeah. That's right.
Did you have a comment, question?
Well, it's the attorney fees. What's the approximate attorney fees for one lien? I mean, give me an estimate.
There's not, let me clarify, there's not an attorney fee for the recording of the lien necessarily. Once the ordinance is imposed, is passed, is adopted, and the fee schedule is imposed by ordinance, then when a fee is not paid by ordinance, it automatically becomes a lien against the property. And so you would have a process in place where Chief Bennett would record a lien document in the public records, not me, but Chief Bennett would do that.
Staff would.
And that would establish, that would reflect in the public record the district's lien on that property. And then you might not do anything with it, and if that property sells in the next 5 years, that scenario I've described earlier where that would have to be, that lien would have to be resolved with the district, would then pop up and then you could deal with it. Probably most of the effort would be on staff's part,
Yes.
unless you decided if somebody owes you, it's like right now I'm having to do quite a few lien foreclosure actions in Glades County where the liens have accumulated to $35,000, $40,000 on one piece of property. And when they get to that level, then that's sometimes where it justifies spending legal fees to do a lien foreclosure action.
And they cannot challenge those fees?
I never said that.
Before you lien a piece of property, you have to send them a notice, letting them know if they don't pay it, that there is going to be a lien imposed on the property, and that at that point they would have to.
There's a process, and I guess really my point simply is this: if there is an intention or an expectation that the district may want to impose a lien on property in the future, the best position for the district to be in would be to adopt an ordinance to give you that best opportunity. If you don't have any desire or intention to impose a lien on real estate because of this schedule of charges, then stick with the resolution. That's what generated all of this, was Chief Bennett asking me the best way to impose a lien on real estate, and I said ordinance is better than resolution. But I also said I'm not aware of any other district in Lee County that uses an ordinance process to adopt a fee schedule either. So there you have it.
One more question. You go with the ordinance, you put a lien on their property, then you got I guess what I'm looking at is, you got one you're not going to pursue a lien on, you're not going to push it, but you got another one that you do. So what happens if you end up in court? Well, this person over here says, well, you've got a lien against so-and-so's property, but you're not making them pay. Why are you making me pay?
Right, go to the can of worms.
And then you're going to have, I'm looking at attorney fees,
Sure.
what it can add up to.
You're not mandated to pursue a foreclosure action. You're probably thinking back, Commissioner Adams, to a number of occasions when we were talking about the assessment process and having to be fair and equitable in the assessment that we impose. There's not a fair and equitable argument to be made or defense that can be raised in the lien foreclosure action. I mean, that's really a decision by the board as to whether you want to pursue a lien foreclosure. It's case by case basis.
And the foreclosure on a homestead property under this scenario would not work either. You're not gonna be able to.
That's true. There are other limitations on abilities to lien homestead property. That's
Commercial property, homestead?
no.
No.
So commercial property was what I was thinking about as being the
Yeah.
issue more so than the homestead.
Right.
I'm not aware of. I mean, if you had a bunch of false fire alarms, maybe you would run up a tab on a homestead on a residential property, but otherwise, you're really talking about the commercial.
Yes.
The fees for the commercial property.
Do you have a question?
Well, it's more like a statement. So this ordinance would not have any teeth when it comes to exempt properties, like government properties, county properties, right? There's no teeth in it, correct?
I don't. I have never filed a lien foreclosure action against another government agency.
You can't.
The statute says that there's not an exemption in your statute for any property. The Constitution provides an exemption for homestead property from many liens, but I'm not, again, that would be on a case-by-case basis, and I don't know that you would ever want to, if you would ever want to pursue. It says the district shall have a lien upon any real property, motor vehicle, marine vessel, aircraft, or rail car for any charge assessed under this subsection. It says you shall have a lien. That's a mandatory phrase. So, are there exceptions? Would there be exceptions? I think the Constitution provides some basic ones, but I don't know that any of those properties are properties that are being assessed charges that are not paying them anyway. So,
Yeah, what's the history? What's the history behind the ones not paying? Are they?
There are properties that are managed with people here locally. However, they're owned by folks either on the East Coast or out of state or out of area.
Commissioner Carter?
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we go with an ordinance with a lien process to at least initiate it for the first time, because as Lehigh is growing, I think we need to change our ways. And like I said before, I'll make a motion that we go with the ordinance with the lien process and follow the directions under the Florida statute and the Florida Constitution as stated by Richard Pringle.
Do I have a second? I would second that motion. Richard, do I need a roll call vote?
no, ma'am, not for this action.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
All right, so all in favor, aye, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Of the ordinance?
Of the ordinance.
Aye.
All opposed, nay?
I'll say nay.
All right, motion passes.